Welcome to Good Times. I'm Wes Goldberg. I'm basically taking myself out of a KD thing and giving you more power.
This is something that I was saying to my assistant general managers. You didn't hear any of that. So in your books, you're just happy to get off of Duncan Robinson's contract, and that's all the first round pick is for. There's no other shenanigans. We're just...
All right, he's one of my favorites here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Brendon, Kleen, host of Locked On Suns. Brendon, here's what we're going to do today. We're going to do a mock trade call with Brian Windhorst reporting that Jae Crowder is available, right? And that he seems to be the center of trade conversations happening right now with the Phoenix Suns. The Miami Heat also reportedly interested in Jae Crowder. Jae Crowder also interested in the Miami Heat, liking Instagram and Twitter tweets about being a member of the Miami Heat once again. So I figured we could do, like I said, a mock trade call. I'll play the Miami Heat GM, so I guess Andy Ellisberg, and you'll play James Jones, the esteemed Phoenix Suns general manager. And we're going to try to hammer out a deal. How's that sound?
It sounds good. I feel like the beginning of that call would really be like old friends catching up. So I feel kind of uncomfortable, like really stepping into that. Those guys know each other pretty well. So that's another aspect of this that might matter.
There'd be a lot of small talk in the beginning. Hey, how's things? Sorry about the flame out in the playoffs last year. Hey, same, and then just kind of go back and forth. And then that would be kind of it. By the way, we could also use a power forward. And then maybe Phoenix responds with, maybe we could use a three-point shooter, perhaps? In the interest of just getting this over with, because I feel like in these negotiations, nobody ever wants to make the first offer. But I'll make the first offer.
Okay.
All right, Brendon?
All right.
It starts with Duncan Robinson. And the only reason it starts with Duncan Robinson is because it also ends with Duncan Robinson. Because right now, the Miami Heat can only, the only contract that makes any sense, even close, is Duncan Robinson's $17 million deal. Jae Crowder on a $10 million deal, expiring contract. Duncan Robinson, 4 more years left on his deal that he signed last summer. But after that, the Heat have smaller deals like Dwayne Dedmon, Victor Oladipo, Caleb Martin, but those contracts don't become tradable until December and January. And obviously, they're not moving Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo. So it's like kind of just, hey, Duncan Robinson, let's start there and try to figure it out.
Yeah, and I've had that on my radar. I mean, Crowder, before he started going wild on social media, like he was a player who I think anyone could read the writing on the wall. He's an expiring contract, or he's on an expiring contract. I hate calling players expiring contracts, so forgive me. But and he's not somebody who figures to be in the long-term plans, right? He's in his 30s. The Suns have this young core. He's been incredibly valuable for them. I don't think they would say no to bringing him back in free agency next year, but you could see him moving on. Cam Johnson's the incoming starter, so I had thought Duncan Robinson being available felt like a match. Obviously, Crowder and the Heat have history. They kind of need a player like him again, having lost PJ Tucker. So before you ever even messaged me, I brought it up on my show plenty of times as a possibility. I think the thing is, the contract difference is point A here, being that Robinson, I mean, the money, making more money, that's fine. It's the length. That's a really tough thing to stomach if you're the Suns, to commit to that future salary. He's basically like a free agency signing, right? Like he's just sort of the guy you're delving out your money to right away. So yeah, if I'm the Suns, I'm trying not to give up too much more than Jae Crowder. And I'm trying to see if I could get something back, because as far as leverage goes, if I'm James Jones, I'm going to talk to Andy or Pat or whoever I can get on the phone and say, hey, you guys have not so subtly been signaling that this is a player you're not too comfortable with going forward for the whole summer, if not longer. So if we're taking him, we might actually want something back. And I think that's probably where this goes.
Word on the street is that it would take a first-round pick to just part with Duncan Robinson's contract, given the size and the length of it, to your point. If Miami could do Duncan Robinson for Jae Crowder straight up, they would be very happy. If Phoenix were happy with that, it feels like that deal would have already been done. It's obviously going to probably take something a little bit more. In terms of the money, we also have to have that conversation. Phoenix, not really a team that wants to pay a whole lot more money than they want to, playing hardball with DeAndre Ayton and things like that. So, and you're James Jones in this situation, so I'm sorry, but like your boss is telling you, hey, throw more salary into that deal, because I'm not taking another $7 million back that's going to be multiplied by the luxury tax.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about another small contract / useful player, whether it's Campaign or Torrey Craig. If I'm the Heat, I give you your pick. Is it Campaign or Torrey Craig? You choose. Throw whichever one in there you're more comfortable with. I would imagine probably Torrey Craig, because Campaign's your backup point guard, right?
Yeah, correct. They did not address that hole, so they can't afford to give up the one guy they have left there. So Yes, Torrey Craig, and that's another player who is not in the playoff rotation. So we're really we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. And yeah, to your money point, you mentioned Brian Windhorst. He reported the Suns might be willing to pay a little bit more. He said they're sort of operating like a team that would be okay with that. So the $2 extra million, or if it was, something different, maybe the Heat throw in another player. They can do it, right? So I don't think it's like inhibiting, but I do think it's a factor. And then I think the next thing that would happen is that James Jones would say, we're doing you a favor, don't forget here, and you're getting two guys who might be in your rotation on top of getting off of Duncan Robinson. So I think we're going to need a pick to get this whole thing done, and it's not going to be a second-round pick. It's going to be a first-round pick.
So we have a 2023, we being the Heat, have a 2023 first-round pick. We could trade a 2029 first-round pick. If we wanted to really get a third team involved, we could call OKC, have them unlock protections on the 2025 pick that we owe them, and then potentially trade a 2027 first-round pick if you really preferred that. I'm going to beg you, don't make me make that call to OKC. Can you choose between the 2023 or the 2029 pick, and then we can hash out protections?
I don't even know if there's a difference. I don't know how you guys feel. I'm sure you've talked about this, but it's like I don't ever think betting on the Heat to just bottom out is really reasonable. So to me, there's not much of a difference, which makes me want the sooner pick. I would not be telling Andy Ellisberg this, but for the audience, like if I'm the Suns, I'm using that pick in a big star trade down the line. That's the bottom line. That's the point of all of this. That's why I'm cashing in on Crowder. I'm getting role players, but I'm also trying to up the offer that I can eventually make for a Kevin Durant or a whoever it ends up being next summer. And so I want the sooner pick. And I think in that case, the projections don't matter a whole ton because I think the Heat are definitely going to be a playoff team next year. And so lottery protected might be fine with me.
Yeah, we're probably not agreeing on a top 25 protection, right? You mentioned Kevin Durant. That's something I hadn't thought about, though. Kevin Durant listed Phoenix and Miami on his list of destinations. If I'm giving now Phoenix a first-round pick, I'm giving you more ammo to get a KD trade done, where I'm taking really valuable assets out of my arsenal to maybe make that KD trade. I'm basically taking myself out of a KD thing and giving you more power.
This is something that I was saying to my assistant general managers. You didn't hear any of that. So in your books, you're just happy to get off of Duncan Robinson's contract, and that's all the first round pick is for. There's no other shenanigans. We're just happy to pick a player at like 22 next year and move forward.
The Heat have so many they have such a limitation on what it is that they can trade, but they are so clearly in the market for a superstar, whether it's Kevin Durant, Donovan Mitchell, or the next one. There is an opportunity cost that comes along with it. If Miami was cool with just Duncan Robinson and a protected first for Jae Crowder, I feel like that trade would have been done already. But they're clearly, I think, holding on to their first round picks because they're worried about, hey, if we move off of one, now we only have, two? We have 2 first-round picks available, and that's not getting you in the door for anything. How desperate are we right now for a power forward, or are we willing to wait until the trade deadline to see if anything more reasonable comes available? I think the Heat would love to have Jae Crowder. I think they're hoping that the Suns really, really love Duncan Robinson, and they're willing to do it without the picks. We would offer you a second-round pick, and we would offer to call that into the commissioner. You're assumingly saying no on that. The first-round pick thing, as much as we might want to get it done, it's probably a non-starter. I just don't see, even if I want to do it, Brendon, like just me, Wes Goldberg wants to do it.
Yeah.
I just don't think that the Heat have shown any willingness to move off of any of these first-rounders.
Well, and I think the same can be said for the Suns, right? Like, I've been somebody advocating for a couple of years now where even though they're obviously well set with a bunch of guys in their mid-20s, they don't have any blue-chip prospects, zero, none. And so if I'm the Suns, be trying to find first-round picks and young talent on the margins with stuff like this. I think Duncan Robinson honestly still counts. He would be much younger than Jae Crowder, even though he's an older guy relative to his contract and everything. And getting a first-round pick, those are things I would do. But I think the Suns would probably look at that and say, hey, Jae Crowder's a championship caliber starting power forward. If we're getting off of him for the sake of something that might happen or help us when Chris Paul's retired, I don't think that that's necessarily something that they would be too thrilled about based on what they've done. They've traded away first-round picks more often than they've taken players. Maybe both you and I would do it, but that's not what would make any sense. These are both very accomplished executives. I think they're probably the right people to be making these decisions, and it seems like they both would say no.
The last stop for Miami would be, can we interest you in a smaller bit player? Mm-hmm. Can we offer you an Omer Yurtseven or a Gabe Vincent? Now that, to me, gets interesting. I think the Heat are high on Yurtseven. I don't know what your feel on Yurtseven is. If you look at him as a potential backup center, instead of that first-round pick, if it were Duncan Robinson and Yurtseven for, I guess, Jae Crowder and Torrey Craig, or we could even do I don't know if you think Gabe Vincent is better than Campaign, but we'd be willing to swap those two guys.
Might be.
Is that a road we could go down?
I think I like that if I'm the Suns from the standpoint of you're not sacrificing depth quite as much if you're getting multiple guys who you feel like could play in the playoffs. You know, if it was Strus and Robinson, I know that's not really something the Heat probably want to do. I like Gabe Vincent. I think Duncan Robinson is somebody who could play and be effective on the Suns. I just don't think Gabe Vincent isn't enough to be able to pull the trigger on the extra $60 million plus that Robinson's committed to versus what Crowder's committed to salary-wise.
So I know the Suns, you guys are calling other teams. You may be talking with Utah. You may be talking to some other teams. There's no trade to call into the commissioner right now. I guess where I'm at now is, hey, let's talk again after you canvass the rest of the league.
I think at the deadline, guys like Oladipo and Martin being available, I think both of those are players the Suns would have more interest in. So I don't think if it doesn't happen now that the Suns would just shut the door on a trade. Obviously, it's weird to trade a guy a couple games into the season, but if they reevaluated in December or January, that would not surprise me at all. I said on my show, I do not think Crowder will be a Sun come game one of the first round next year. He'll be available if the Heat still need a 4 come February.
Brendon Kleen from Locked On Suns, not James Jones, but did a really good impression of him. Thanks, Brendon.
Thanks, Wes.